I never could have pictured that the tiny boy I cradled in my arms 2 decades ago would one day grow into the kind of man who would fill my heart with a pride I didn't even know was possible. My name is Lisa Matthews, and this is the journey of my son, Jacob. Robert, his father, and I married young, fresh out of college, full of plans and certainty. Robert was sharp-minded, ambitious, and driven, working as a financial analyst. I was a schoolteacher, content with the rhythm of classroom life. We believed we had everything mapped out. Life wasn't flawless, but we had stability. A roof over our heads, steady paychecks, and soon enough, a beautiful baby boy to complete our little world. Jacob came into the world on a damp, chilly evening in March in Charlotte. The hospital windows were clouded with condensation from the cold outside. I remember holding him for the first time, my heart swelling with a fierce promise to protect him with every ounce of my being. Robert gazed down at him with unmistakable pride and said, "He's going to be just like me." At the time, those words sounded like a blessing. But life often writes a different story than the one we imagine. Robert was a good man, but he bore the weight of expectations, his own and the ones inherited from his upbringing. He wanted Jacob to grow into a man like him, resilient, ambitious, unwilling to take no for an answer. But from the start, Jacob was different. Gentle, imaginative, thoughtful. He preferred sketching pictures, helping classmates with homework, and creating rather than competing. Sports never appealed to him, and the drive to win wasn't in his nature. It frustrated Robert. "You've got to be stronger," he would insist. "You can't walk through life with your head in the clouds." The tension would sometimes be quiet, other times loud enough to rattle the walls. As Jacob grew, so did the space between father and son. Robert loved him, but he couldn't always understand him. And in return, Jacob began to retreat. When Jacob turned 14, life dealt us a heavy blow. Robert lost his job. The company shut down its local branch, and he took the loss hard. That same year, I began taking on extra work, double shifts at school and weekend tutoring to keep us afloat. Robert wasn't cruel or violent, but the man who had once brimmed with drive became withdrawn. He spent long hours watching the news, pacing the living room, muttering under his breath about how unfair life could be. Through all of it, Jacob remained a bright spot in our home. He still offered to cook dinner, still made me laugh with his silly impressions, still walked our dog Max every morning before school. But he stopped meeting his father's gaze. By the time high school rolled around, Jacob had found music. He saved up for a second-hand guitar from a pawn shop and learned to play through YouTube tutorials. He'd spend hours in his room, strumming and scribbling lyrics into worn notebooks. Soon he began performing, at school assemblies, in small coffee shops, even at birthday parties. People noticed. One of his teachers pulled me aside and said, "He has something rare, don't let him lose it." Robert didn't see it that way. "Music doesn't pay the bills," he would say. "He's wasting his time." I pleaded with him to let Jacob explore his own path, but Robert's pride made it hard for him to step back. Then everything shifted. When Jacob was 17, Robert suffered a mild stroke. The scare shook all of us. He recovered physically, but something inside him changed. The unyielding exterior softened. He began to listen more. He started watching Jacob with a new kind of curiosity. One evening, I walked into the living room to find Robert sitting with his phone in hand, watching a video. It was Jacob performing at a local talent show. His hands trembled slightly as he held the device. "He's really good," he murmured almost to himself. That was the first crack in the wall between them. They began talking again, slowly at first, one short exchange at a time. During Robert's recovery, Jacob showed him a few chords on the guitar. Sometimes they would play together. Sometimes Robert would simply sit and listen. For the first time in years, I heard laughter drifting down the hallway. When Jacob graduated from high school, he received a scholarship to a music conservatory in New York. At the ceremony, Robert cried openly. He hugged Jacob so tightly I thought neither of them would let go. Now, 3 years later, Jacob is touring with a band, performing for sold-out college crowds along the East Coast. His songs carry something rare: hope, truth, and a spark that moves people. He visits us every month, bringing the same light he's always had. Just last week, I stood in the kitchen watching him play a new song for Robert. When he finished, Robert clapped and said quietly, "You've become a better man than I ever was." I stepped outside onto the porch and let the tears fall, not from sadness, but from the joy of knowing my son had grown into a man defined not by force or pride, but by compassion, purpose, and grace. Yes, Jacob is a better man than his father. And Robert knows it. I know it. We are both endlessly proud of him. He taught us both what it truly means to grow, and that's a gift I will carry for the rest of my life.